Hi, my name is Jeff Leapart. Today, I will be discussing why nuclear power is too expensive and dangerous to employ. Did you know that nuclear power production poses significant operational dangers that include large-scale catastrophes, death and radiation illness, threat of attack by terrorists, and the dangers will persist for thousands or possibly millions of years? The research suggests that nuclear power is not feasible because it is relatively expensive to generate, poses significant operational dangers, and waste disposal isn't safe. Let's discuss 3 points. First, nuclear power's hidden costs are beyond measure and end up being borne by the taxpayer and future generations to come. Second, the operational dangers posed by the nuclear industry are a historical fact. And third, nuclear waste is unsafe, and after 50 years of production, the disposal methods are still yet to be determined. In point 1, we find the cost of nuclear power is beyond reason. In 2008, Lovins showed us the levelized cost of savings for delivering 1 kilowatt hour of new electricity versus competing technologies. Nuclear energy isn't feasible because the overall costs are far more expensive to generate than sustainable alternatives. Lovins used independent studies from MIT and Keystone, which are more than double the alternatives, coupled with industry estimates to show that nuclear power will cost the consumer 14 cents or higher per delivered kilowatt hour. This is double the delivered cost of large wind farm energy and more than double the cost of various cogeneration facilities. According to Madsen in 2009, construction costs for nuclear plants increased 300% in 4 years, while competing energy sources had increased 80% in 7. Startup and construction costs are about out of control and estimates are unreliable. In 2008, Lovins found 12 plants that had been in construction for at least 20 years, with some in that condition for close to 40. On average, reactors are brought online 300% over budget, with some reaching as high as 1,200% over estimates. The 2012 Cooper report shows outages plague the industry. 25% of all working plants range from 1 to more than 3 years. The average cost of an outage is $1.5 billion and the most expensive over $11 billion. 49% of all orders placed in the U.S. ended in cancellations, while 38% of the remaining portion ended in early retirement or extended outages. We find that only about 26% of all nuclear facilities have fulfilled their original license. Significant costs are not being disclosed. In 2008, Riccio reported hidden costs such as lost wages, relocation expenses, decontamination costs, lost property, and the cost of interdiction for property and farmland that range from $122 to $274 billion across the U.S. In 2009, Madsen shares that in the U.S., the risk is shifted to the taxpayers, where the government guarantees loans from 60 to 90%. And in 2008, several companies requested over $103 billion more than the Congress had reserved. Point 2 exposes how nuclear power poses significant operational dangers. Catastrophes and accidents have already plagued the industry. In 2008, Riccio shared that the Chernobyl disaster was estimated to have cost 215 billion rubles. Over 12,000 square miles of land were contaminated. 70,000 people were poisoned and disabled by radiation. There were 4,000 deaths between the accident and its cleanup, and a total of 3.4 million people affected per the Ukraine government. The U.S. alone has had 5 reactor meltdowns to date. Nuclear facilities are a target of terrorists and security is lacking. The FBI reported that terrorists have been plotting against the U.S. to attack nuclear plants since 1995, and the Congress considered these threats to be credible. This is worsened by the NRC's confession that 47% of the 103 facilities in the U.S. were found to have significant security weaknesses. The 06 Caldecott report shows that the dangers will remain far too long. After the 3 Mile Island meltdown, the NRC reported that xenon escaped and was found over 230 miles away. During the meltdown, water was used to cool the reactor, and so the Susquehanna River was polluted with radioactive cooling water. Some of these elements remained radioactive for millions of years. In point 3, we find that nuclear waste is unsafe. Per Caldecott, radiation to the living person has a cumulative effect. Dr. H.J. Muller won a Nobel Prize for proving that mutated cells from radiation are passed from parent to child and persist throughout the generations. Furthermore, the research proved that effects were equal between a large dose and many small doses and do accumulate over time. No permanent storage methods other than earthen repositories have been deemed feasible, and none have been built to date, according to Lyman in 2007. He cites that Yucca Mountain in Nevada is the only site on Earth that's been identified. Major concerns include sabotage, theft, and groundwater pollution. Concerns increased with new revelations that the groundwater filtration rate is much higher than anticipated. To add fuel to the fire, the facilities would only be rated to hold 70,000 tons of material, and the U.S. has already produced over 55,000 tons as of 2007. The evidence is overwhelming that nuclear power is not feasible because it is relatively expensive to generate, poses significant operational dangers, and waste disposal isn't safe. Let's review the main points. 1. While it is clear the monetary costs are more than can be measured, the loss to life, health, and the environment is far more costly. 2. The dangers posed by the nuclear industry should eliminate its use. 3. After 50 years of production, nuclear waste is not in permanent storage anywhere on Earth, and no solutions are yet in our grasp. In closing, with better education to the taxpayer, better choices can be made when a vote is put to the public where possible moratoriums can be reached on nuclear power. The hidden costs, coupled with the proven history of the nuclear industry to exceed their budgets, should establish the need to stop all construction. Finally, the dangers posed from potential catastrophes, in addition to the nuclear waste issues, require immediate attention to determine a permanent safe handling method, as well as in-depth reviews from neutral third parties to ascertain the real potential of facility failures and security deficiencies. Thank you for your time. I hope this presentation has been informative.